My name is Shakila Neer, and welcome to a brief presentation on the fundamentals of business communication. The objective of this presentation will be to touch on each of the following key points: business communication, communication model, types of communication, communication direction, communication channels, barriers in communication, and ethics. First up, let's discuss the definition of communication. Communication is the process of sending and receiving messages. Business communication is the formal communication process in a company, either internally between employees or externally between a company and the public. It's not just communication between parties that is important in business, but also the effectiveness of the communication. To better understand, let's discuss the communication model. The author, A. Newman, displayed this communication model in the 9th edition of Business Writing. You start with the communication need. A sender interprets the communication context, identifies and analyzes the audience, determines objectives, chooses the medium, and creates the message. The audience interprets the message, provides feedback, and becomes the sender of a new message. Now that you know the process of communication, we can discuss the direction or flow of communication. Communication direction refers to how communication travels between established levels in a business. Downward or cascading communication is probably the most common and describes information that comes down the pipeline from headquarters and upper management. Upward communication is when the flow of information comes from lower level employees to upper management. An example of this would be feedback to downward communication. Lateral or horizontal communication is the exchange of information at the same or similar business levels. This communication is usually cross-functional between different departments. Next, let's discuss our options of delivering communication. Communication channels describe the options you have of presenting your message. Here are a few examples of the many available communication channels. Traditional channels of communication include newsletters, mail, correspondence, reports, and face-to-face meetings and trainings. Now that we are more technology-driven, technology-based communication channels have become the standard in most businesses. Emails, phone automation, text, web pages, and social media are the main forms of effective communication, especially with the public. Now that we know what business communication is, the sender and audience process, and the method to get a message from point A to B, let's move on to the boundaries. Barriers in communication. If we refer back to the communication model, barriers in communication should be anticipated during the transfer of the message between sender and audience. Barriers in communication refer to verbal barriers, knowledge or vocabulary discrepancies, interpretation, language, and ambiguity, meaning unclear messages. Nonverbal barriers include perception differences, conflicting signals, emotion, and external noise. Try to anticipate these barriers as best as you can in the planning of your message, and be cognizant of the nonverbal cues displayed in your delivery. Another thing to keep in mind when communicating is ethics. In short, do the right thing. Present an honest message and be fair. If you don't know or you're unsure, default to company policy or departments put in place to discern these topics, like legal and human resources. You now are informed with the basic topics of business communication. Please use this as a stepping stone to delve deeper into the subject so you can master the art of effective communication in business and otherwise. If you have any questions or feedback, leave a comment. Thanks for viewing.